Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K Facebook Live, and today I'm going to show you how I made a card with the Ringed with Nature stamp set bundle from the current July to December 2022 mini catalog. So this is one of the newer bundles, and it's actually got some coordinating designer series paper in the celebration brochure that you can get for free with an order of $50 or greater. And the coordinating paper, I didn't use it on my card, but the coordinating paper does have a lot of similar images in it and some really pretty colors in it. And there's actually some wood grain paper in that pack that coordinates with the die and embossing folder from this set. So, all right, so this is the card we're going to be making. It's an anniversary card. Always need those. Have a lot of family members and, lots of weddings and anniversaries and all that sort of thing. So just a quick anniversary card that I made, and it's actually pretty simple. It's just a little die cutting, a little bit of layering, tiny bit of stamping, and it's all done. So let's start with the stamp set. Hey, Beth, thanks for hopping in from Maine today. Glad you're here. This is the Ringed with Nature stamp set. So it's, again, got some really good general sentiments in it. It's even got a Christmas sentiment in it, and there's poinsettia images. I love the little house image in it. Hey, Carol, thanks for joining today. Glad you're here. Let's see, I don't know if there are other comments coming through. It's telling me there are more comments, but of course, Facebook is Facebook. So, all right. So we've got the, again, just general thinking of you, get well soon, just for you. There's an anniversary sentiment in here, which is the one we're using today. There's the tree ring image. And again, just some really good sort of kind of layering, stamping, coordinating images. These actually can be used. It's a little set of 3, and they look like gumdrops to me, but they actually can be used as they line up perfectly with the stems in this, and they can be stamped as mushrooms, or you can turn them upside down and use this image with it and turn it into an acorn. And that's actually kind of, these are dies that have a similar look to them, but that I actually use them for acorns, or you can turn it upside down and use it as a mushroom as well. So that's the cool thing about this die set. There are lots of ways to use it. So hey, Danette and Akiko and Faith, thanks for joining, and Donna's here as well. All right, so that is the stamp set. It is photopolymer, which is nice, so you can see through it for stamping. And again, there's a lot of the 2-step stamping in it. This flower coordinates with the little stems down here. I don't know, I think that's about all. So anyway, just so you know, it's a nice stamp set, really easy to use, easy to stamp with. Let me throw that aside here for a second. And then this comes with what Stampin' Up! Calls a 3D hybrid embossing folder, which is actually an embossing folder with a set of dies. So it's a little deceiving in the description of it, but it's a really cool, they actually work together. So this embossing folder is obviously the tree ring look to it, and if you open it up, and I'll show you how this works in a minute, there's actually a die that coordinates with it and fits perfectly, if I can get my fingers to to slide it over and make it in the right spot, that coordinates with this. Okay, Amy, this will work, I promise. There we go. So it coordinates with it. You put your designer or put your cardstock in it, close it up, and it cuts and embosses all at once. So it's a really cool embossing folder. There are a couple of those in the annual catalog as well. So take a look at them if you haven't seen them. They're awesome. All right, so we've got this is the die set and the stamp set. And then there are all sorts of little accessory pieces. I actually used quite a few of them, not quite all of them, but almost all of the dies that are on here. So these are the little mushroom stems. This can be used as the mushroom top or the acorn bottom. We're using it as the acorn bottom today. And then there's a little acorn top. Hey, Karen and Julie, thanks for joining. There's some little stems and kind of leaves look, and then there's a little berry set. And then these that look kind of like starfish actually are designed. If you wanted to, you can take them and put them in the center of your ring die cuts and cut it out in the center, and then it makes it look a little more realistic like wood does, where it kind of gets that crack in the center of it. So that's what all the dies are. Again, it's a great set, coordinates with your embossing folder, and these come when you order the bundle, they come together, so you're actually going to get the dies, the embossing folder, and the stamp set with it. Or if you just order the Tree Rings Hybrid Embossing Folder, you actually get the dies and you get the embossing folder with it. So it's not just the embossing folder that you get the dies and the embossing folder. So it's a pretty cool little set. A couple other things that I used on this. I used the deckled rectangles dies, and I used that to cut the designer paper here on the background just to kind of give it a little bit of a weathered look. And I used the second largest one of those. And then, of course, I have found out hard to make a card without using the stitched rectangle dies. And of course, I use the smallest one here to cut the sentiment out on the card front. Ooh, yikes, sorry about that. Just totally smacked right into the light with the die set. One thing I wanted to remind you about, Stampin' Up! Does some of the products in the Stampin' Up! Catalog, is what I'm trying to say, qualify for the back-to-school tax-free holiday weekends that some states are having. So there is a sheet, and I will make sure that it's linked up in my blog post tomorrow, that has all of the products that you can get for tax-free during your tax-free back-to-school weekends from the Stampin' Up! Catalog. So yay. It's a lot of things like markers, cardstock, adhesives, kind of some of the basic stamping stuff. So get it while you can get it tax-free. Might as well do it. So again, there are 2 of the states, Alabama and Puerto Rico, both have already had their tax-free holidays, but all the others are coming up or going on now. So, all right, let me know if you have questions on that. Again, I'll be posting that on my blog tomorrow. So let's get started with some actual stamping after I've yacked for long enough. And I apologize, I'm probably a little extra nasally. I know I normally am, but my daughter came home from school, from the summer school program that she is in, with a runny nose last week, and she kindly shared it with me, so yay for that. You know how that goes. All right, so I've got crumb cake ink, and I've got the little, this one is sort of like it's a 3-leaf image from the stamp set, and we're just going to do a little stamping across the background of a crumb cake card base. So I'm just stamping tone on tone. Hey Angela, thanks for joining, and Julie as well. And I'm just going to stamp it kind of around the edges of the card base, because the center, you can stamp it in the center if you want to, but it's all going to be covered anyway. So I just try to, do the minimum when it comes to stamping, because I'm generally kind of a lazy stamper. So, if there's a way that I can cut something out or make it go a little faster, then I usually do that. And thankfully, this one is pretty easy, that you can just stamp right around the edges with the little pretty greenery image here, although I'm stamping it in brown. So is it still greenery when you stamp it in brown? I don't know. We'll call it greenery. So the little stems and leaves. And then I think I'll stamp one more time here. And if I wanted to, again, if I weren't lazy, I could put a little piece of masking material across the top of it and stamp all the way across the top if I wanted to. But this one works out easy enough to do it without it. So. All right, so that is the background of the card front. Again, crumb cake card base. This one is cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2. This card will also work with your standard book fold card. So if you prefer that card base to the top fold one, so your side fold, which is 5 1/2 or 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 and scored at 4 1/4, this card will work perfectly with either card base. So that's one nice thing. You can do whatever you like with it. All right, so I've got a couple of pieces of cardstock here, and I'm going to show you, hopefully, how this works, and I'll try not to fumble through it too badly. So I have got the Tree Rings Hybrid Embossing Folder, and this is a panel of soft suede cardstock. And this one is cut to pretty much card front size, because this is a little bit larger, not like an oversized embossing folder, but it's a little larger. I wanted to make sure that I was able to get all of the tree rings cut out of it that I wanted for my card front. So I'm going to grab the larger die here, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it into the embossing folder. And it doesn't really lock in, like it doesn't snap into place or anything like that, but it fits kind of into a groove. So once you get it in there, if you press down and kind of wiggle, you shouldn't be able to move the die around if it's in the right place. So it's, again, it doesn't like snap in, but it definitely fits into the embossing folder. And then I'm going to take my soft suede panel, and again, this one's cut to, like I said, it's about 5 1/2 by 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So, all right, let me close this up. The one thing to know is I know that I'm not going to need this top little tree ring here. I'm going to be using this one, and this one. So I want to make sure that those are definitely going to be cut the correct way. So I don't care so much that I'm going to have a little bit of the top that is not going to be cut. If you wanted to cut all of them at once and have them all cut perfectly, then definitely just get about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch longer piece of paper, and you can put it in there. So then I'm going to close this up. And then I'm going to take it and hold it together and flip it over. I don't know that I need to, but I just wanted to flip it over to show you. And I'm going to run it through the die cutting machine with the base plate then my embossing folder with the die and the paper in it, and then the plate number 4, which is the specialty plate. This plate, just so you know, will work in many different die cutting machines. So it's not just the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine that it will work in. There are others that it will as well. I'm not going to go into all the specifics on that, but I will just tell you that it works in pretty much all of these standard die cutting machines. And it's designed to work with the Stampin' Up! 3D embossing folders, and it will give you a perfect embossing every single time without worrying about shims and all that craziness that sometimes you have to do to stack things up to get the 3D embossing folders to work correctly. So just know that you don't have to do that with this one. So just get this plate. I think it's $10.50 in the US, but very easy to use, and you'll love it. You'll be very happy with it. So, hey, Angela, and that's what hybrid means. So yes, then yeah, it's cool because it cuts and embosses all at once. So I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine. And then I'll show you what we get. So when it comes out of the die cut machine, you take your die out, and I'll put this over here, back on the magnetic plate that I've got here. And then I'm going to take off. And so this is what you get when you use the embossing folder along with the dies. So you get an embossed and die cut piece of cardstock, which is actually pretty cool. So, all right, so these, did I use that one? No, I used this one. Okay, so I've got 2 of the, 1 3/4 of these that I'm not going to use on this card. So I'll just set those aside for now. Then I'm going to grab my piece of crumb cake cardstock, and this one I'm going to be using I'm going to be cutting the inner parts of the little tree rings with, so I only need to emboss them initially. So again, I know I don't need this top one, so I'm not going to worry about making sure that one's embossed nicely. But I'm just going to put this through the die cutting machine again, and it's the same sandwich, so it's going to be the base plate with that gray specialty number 4 plate. When I run it through, then it's going to emboss these. And this is what you get when you just emboss it. So it does give you a nice embossed look. You can definitely use this for a card front if you prefer to do that and not have it cut. So it's pretty awesome. Then, oh, let me scooch. I've got a mess. I have things everywhere here. All right, so then I'm going to take my die cut inside pieces, and I'll take this one as the one for the larger die cut. So I'm going to take this, and it fits sort of, it doesn't fit perfectly inside it, but hopefully you can see there's a little notch here and a little notch here in the embossing. So this is the right way for this one to cut. And then I'm going to grab this one. And again, you'll see there's a little notch here and a little notch here, and you'll find that same thing in the embossing. And there's a little outy part there, so it fits right into the embossed area. And then I've got my little one left here. And again, just twirl it around until it fits into the embossed area. So that's what it should look like when you put it in there. And I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine, just standard die cutting with my base plate and the cutting plates for just standard die cutting. So I'm going to be off screen again for just a second while I die cut this. I'll see if I can get it over here without knocking it all off. All right. Let me put my dies back on the sheet here, and I'll show you the die cut and emboss pieces. Oh, there's my last one. I'm like, where's the last? There it is. All right. So when you run it back through the die cutting machine, it does kind of smoosh down a little bit of the embossing on it, but it doesn't take it away enough that you can't see it, or that I think you need to run it through a second time. If you wanted to, you could re-emboss these, but again, being the lazy stamper that I am, I'm not going to do that. All right, let me grab a tissue again. I apologize about the extra drippy nose here that I've got going today. So I'm going to start sticking these together, and I'm going to use a little bit of Stampin' Seal, maybe. There we go, if I can get it going. And then this is my larger one, so again, I just need to make sure that I've got it placed in here the right way around. and these two fit together. So you can see the little notches in there. And then I've got the medium-sized one. We're going to stick those together, maybe. There we go. Fingers, Amy, let's go. All right. And then again, I'm just going to look and find the notches that fit together. So here's the little in notch, there's an in notch, there's the little out notch. So I'm going to take those, put it in here. And I've got a little gloober of glue, just rub that right off. And then again, same thing on this last one. Just going to line up my little notches here. And that's it. So now I've got the 3 tree rings all ready to go. I did do a tiny little bit of stamping on this tree ring, on the larger one. So I've got the little heart image from the Ringed with Nature stamp set and a little bit of Sweet Sorbet ink. And because it's an anniversary card, just put a little heart on it. So, all right. And again, because it's all embossed already, we're sticking things everywhere. You'll see it doesn't give you a perfect stamped image. Again, if you wanted a perfect stamped image, you could try to stamp it ahead of time. But again, this is a little more rustic looking set, so I wasn't terribly worried about having everything look perfect on it. It's supposed to look more natural. So, all right. Next up, I did the die cutting ahead of time on my piece of Splendid Day Designer Series paper. This is the specialty paper from the current mini catalog. As you see, the opposite side of it is the foiled one. But again, on this one, I wanted it to be a little more natural look. So I went ahead and used the one that looks a little more like fabric. And I used the second largest of the deckled rectangles dies. And I just cut a piece of the Designer Series paper with that. And we're going to adhere that with Stampin' Seal to a piece of soft suede cardstock. The soft suede is cut to about 3.5 by 4 7/8 inches. And we're just going to adhere the 2 pieces together. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick that on the card front before I really start assembling the kind of look on the front, because I want to make sure that everything that I stick on is actually on the card front and isn't going to get caught in the envelope and all torn up when I go to try to mail it. So I've got my little half Stampin' dimensionals. I chopped my dimensionals in half. If you prefer the whole ones, you definitely can do that. I know some people cringe and hate seeing me cut them in half, but I actually like the half size ones better than the full size ones. So they hold just as well. I use half of them, and I don't know, I like the way they fit better. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, so I'm going to take this and try to get it lined up fairly straight and fairly even. And I put my card front on the grid paper on the straight lines in an effort to help me do that. I still get them stuck on crookedy sometimes, but it helps a little bit if I have it on something that's already straight. That helps me to know where I'm putting everything down and putting it down correctly. All right, now I'm going to start putting the tree rings on the card front, and I'm going to use mini glue dots with these. So I'm just going to take it, and I'll show you in a second how I'm putting these on the back. I'm kind of scooching them a little bit towards the center because I know I'm going to be tucking some of the greenery pieces in around this. So I want to make sure that I have room to wiggle things in, and that I'm hopefully not going to smack into glue dots every time I go to try to slide something up and underneath. So I'm going to put the first one, I think we'll go right up in this area. And then I'm going to put my little one down towards the bottom. And again, I'm going to do the same, well, although this one doesn't matter because I'm not tucking anything underneath it. But just stuck the little glue dots on there. And we'll take that and tuck it down here near the bottom. All right, and then we will take the medium-sized one, and we're going to stick that down with Stampin' Dimensionals. So didn't know how to use the glue dots either. Okay. Those took me a minute. They used to be rolled a different way, and it took me a minute to figure out how to use them as well. But yeah, I figured out once I figured out that if you flip it over like this and then press down onto it, it works really well. So that's how I've used them. All right, so we've got a couple Stampin' Dimensionals that we're going to use to adhere this one on, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm hopefully not covering up the little heart that I've got stamped on there. And this little piece is still peeking out down here at the bottom. And Stampin' Dimensionals again towards the center because I'm going to be tucking things in and around this, and I want to make sure that I've got the room to do that. All right, so let me grab, I've done again a little bit of die cutting ahead of time because it's boring to have me off screen and talking while you're watching nothing. So I've done some of the die cutting, and I'll show you all the pieces that I used to die cut here in a second. Let me grab, oh, here it is, the die set. So again, this is the Tree Rings Hybrid Embossing Folder dies. So I used the ones that look like the little sticks, little branches, I guess, not sticks, little branches. And I cut old olive cardstock with this set of 4. And then I cut a piece of the 2022 to 2024 in color 6x6 glimmer paper with this that looks like berries. So I cut 2 of those. And again, they're not super shimmery, shiny, but a little bit of something shiny on it. It's got just a touch of glittery look to it. And then I cut 2 of the acorn tops and 2 of the acorn bottoms. And these were cut from the brushed metallic 12x12 specialty cardstock. So there are 3 different colors in that pack. So I picked one that looks a little more gold, and this one looks a little more maybe bronze to me. So it's kind of a 2-tone metallic look for the acorns. So that's all the die cuts that I did. And again, I'm just going to grab glue dots and start tucking the little die cuts in and around the larger tree rings. So I'm going to take my first little die cut and tuck it underneath here. The one nice thing about using the glue dots is that it allows me to slide it under without, I know some people love liquid glue. I'm not a liquid glue fan because I tend to end up with everything stuck to me and not to my card front, which is really not the look that I usually am going for. So I tend to use glue dots anytime that I can, and it makes it easier to slide things underneath, and I don't get glue stuck all over me and everything else on the card. All right, so I'm tucking my little glimmer paper berries up here underneath as well. So I'm going to take that. And then same thing down here, just going to take the same little approach to it and just take the glue dots and stick my die cut branches down here underneath. Whoop, there we go. And then we'll take the other one and tuck it in. And whoop, I missed a glue dot, it looks like. All right, let's take that one and then tuck it up here underneath this, the larger, whoop, that one's hanging off the card front. See, this is why I put it all together first and then add my die cuts afterwards, because I'd have totally had that hanging way off the card front. All right, and then we've got our last little piece of glimmer paper here, the die cut, and I'm going to take that and tuck it right underneath here in the middle, maybe. If I can get this edge lifted up. There we go. That's what I was trying to do with it. Just trying to do it with my 2 left hands. All right, then I've got my little acorn pieces. And same thing with them. I'm just going to take little glue dots and stick them to the back of my die cuts here. So I'm going to take this little die cut, and I'm going to hold off on pressing it down really hard until I kind of make sure I have both pieces stuck down here and they are where I want them to be. So I'll get my little acorn top, and I'm going to take that, whoop, maybe, and set it right over top of the other acorn die cut. Oh, that's all kinds of crazy. Try to get it even and kind of straight, and it ended up neither. All right. There we go. I think that's looking a little better. And then take my other little acorn up here at the top. And again, just take that, and we will stick it right here. Add the acorn top. Same thing, just adding a little glue dot to it. And again, like I said, if you're a liquid glue person and prefer to use that, you certainly can stick everything down with liquid glue. But like I said, I just tend to end up with it stuck all over me and not anywhere on the card where I want it to be. So I tend to use glue dots and piles of them for these types of little die cuts. All right, last acorn, we are going to stick that one down here. And the last little acorn top. And then we just have the sentiment left on the outside of the card, and we'll be done. All right, so take that and stick it here over the top of the bottom of the card. Does that make sense? All right, over the lower part of the card, we'll say that. All right, so next up, I've got a little piece of basic white, a little scrap of basic white cardstock, and the Sweet Sorbet ink. The acorns are really cute, and they're cute as mushrooms too, believe it or not. I'm not like a big mushroom fan, but they are really cute as mushrooms. So either way you use them, they're great. So, all right, got my anniversary sentiment, again from the Ringed with Nature stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it here on basic white cardstock. Looks like I got a pretty decent image on that one. And I'll close this up before I stick my fingers in it. And then I'm going to grab my stitched rectangle dies, and this is the smallest of the narrow rectangles. So these I consider the wide rectangles. These I consider the narrow. So this is the smallest one of the narrow rectangles. And I'm going to take that over to my die cutting machine once I get it laid out here. And we're just going to run that through the die cutting machine. So, all right. Now all we have left is a little embellishing and a quick stamp on the inside, and we're done. That was nearly a huge crash. So I almost dropped my cutting plate on the floor. And I've done that before, and it scares everybody in the house because I have hardwood floors in here, and it makes quite a noise when you drop those plastic plates on the floor. So, all right. Oh, I'm glad you like the little two-tone acorns. Like I said, I was trying to come up with something that was a little bit shiny and definitely would give it a little different look on the color. And that was what I figured out. So, all right, so I got a couple little glue dots that I'm using to stick the sentiment onto the card front. And again, I went with glue dots instead of dimensionals on this because it's already kind of thick. It's already got 2 layers of dimensionals, and I thought with a 3rd layer, I might not be able to get it to go with just a single stamp in the mail. And that's always, usually my goal is to get them to be able to run through the postal service with just 1 stamp instead of 2. All right. I've got a couple of the rustic metallic adhesive back dots, and I'm going to stick a couple of those down here on the bottom of my card front. And I can already see that my collage ended up landing a little differently on my first card than it did on this one. So my first one, I obviously put my greenery down a little bit further, and so I tucked the glue or the little dots around it. These two I'm just sticking down here because it ended up a little bit higher. And that's what happens when you're working and playing with collages. It all ends up a little different each time you put it together. All right, so that's it for the card front. So again, super easy, just a little bit of die cutting, and that hybrid embossing folder makes the die cutting super, super easy. Just run it through once and you get everything all done with the background, and then run it through twice to get your little inner parts of the tree rings done. So I'm glad that you're liking the card, Julie. I appreciate that. So, all right, so the inside of the card I kept very simple as well, and I've just got chrome cake ink and basic white cardstock. This is cut to about 4 by 5 1/4. And again, all the details will be posted on my blog for this tomorrow. So all the measurements and all that good stuff will be out there, and I will link up the blog post as soon as it goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. I'm just going to take the little kind of leafy image here and stamp it a couple of times in chrome cake ink on the bottom and a couple of times in chrome cake ink up here on the top, and we'll be all done with the card. So kind of tucking a few little images in here around the panel, and we will call that good. Almost totally stuck my fingers in the ink again. All right, so we're going to take some Stampin' Seal and we will stick this to the inside of the card, and we'll be all done for today. So again, all the details will be posted on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com. If you're not a follower, feel free to stop out and follow along, and you can check out all the projects that I make, and let me know if you like them, don't like them, whatever. All right, so that is it for my card today. So this is the one I made ahead of time, my sample card. This is the one we made here today. So again, just really easy, really quick. Great for anniversaries, great for Christmas. I think this one you could even do as a Christmas card if you wanted to, just obviously swap out your sentiment. But I think the colors in it and kind of the natural look of it, I think you could easily turn this into a Christmas card. So there you have it. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining today. I appreciate you being here. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. Don't forget about Celebration and the awesome joining promotion that's going on. We'd love to have you come join us and be part of our team. We're pretty relaxed stampers and just like to have fun stamping together and sharing projects. So there again. All right, let me know if you have any questions about anything. I will plan to be live on my YouTube channel around 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday, and then back here live around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Tuesday, out on Facebook. So all right, chat with you all soon.